Welcome to another episode of the Victory Podcast, driven by Audi. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by my co-host and former USC quarterback, Cody Kessler. Cody, we are back to preview another big matchup. It's finally the week, USC versus Colorado. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, big game. Obviously, big noon kickoff. A lot of attention on this game. A little bit more build-up throughout the year. Obviously, Colorado struggled a little bit last week with Oregon, but that means this team's going to be hungry this week, so still a ton to talk about. We're going to go over Arizona State a little bit, too, and what we can learn from that game, and I'm kind of glad that it happened. Obviously, some highs and some lows in that game, a little bit closer than people expected, but we learned a lot about this football team on the road, so I'm excited to get in this episode, and again, a fun game, early game.
I know.
We've talked about it before.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be quick. Trojan tailgate starts at 7 a.m.
Goodness.
There's a lot of turnarounds that are going to be quick, but I'm excited. It'll be a fun game in Boulder, and it'll be a good challenge for this USC football team.
For sure. Now, before we dive into it, just a couple reminders. If you are enjoying the show, please subscribe wherever you are watching or listening. We are simulcasting on the USC Athletics YouTube channel, so be sure to subscribe there and wherever you get your podcasts as well. If you want to go above and beyond, you can leave a review on your podcasting app. It helps grow the show, and we greatly appreciate everyone who's done that. And if you ever want to get your voice heard, you can look at our socials, Victory Pod USC. We put a tweet out or a question box on Instagram the day before we record to get your questions in, and you can either ask Cody or Dion Bailey. And speaking of Dion, we didn't get a reaction podcast on Sunday. He was gracious enough to let me go live my best life at the Beyonce concert on Sunday, which is very great,
By the way, how was that?
Amazing.
Before we dive into football,
So amazing.
let's get the
we
Beyonce
did
talk
get a
out of the
question
way.
about it, so the Beyonce talk will come later. Yeah.
Perfect.
So, but we will be back with Dion to recap the Colorado game on Sunday. So thank you for everyone, your patience for not having a pod, and that's why Cody, you and I will kind of break down the ASU game a little bit and get your thoughts there, since we haven't really talked about it yet. And then Cody, exciting news for you too. Got to plug this because we are obviously Cody fans here at the Victory Podcast. You have a fun opportunity for you this Saturday.
Yeah, so Saturday, Fox Sports reached out. They offered me an opportunity to do a broadcast of the game. Now, obviously, they have the main broadcast on TV, Big Noon Kickoff, all of that. But Fox reached out and asked if I wanted to do kind of like a Manning cast type thing they do on Monday Night Football. So we'll be in studio. It'll be myself, RJ Young. I'm not sure who the third will be. It's a Colorado player, so we'll have USC input, Colorado input, and then RJ Young obviously will kind of facilitating the whole thing. But we're going to watch the game in studio, 3 hours long. As long as the game lasts, we're going to broadcast the whole thing, kind of give our thoughts on it live in time while we're watching. And so if you do want to watch that, it'll be on CFB on Fox on their Twitter account. That's the handle. And then the handle on YouTube as well, CFB on Fox. They'll both be live streamed. So, yeah, very exciting news.
Yay, we're so happy for you.
Been wanting to do some stuff with Fox for a while now. So the fact they reached out, my agent texted me and was like, yo, like a bunch of yo's. And I said, what's up? So fun fact, though, after that, as soon as that ends, if you want to listen to KABC, I'll be jumping in a car, going straight to the studios to do the post-game Trojans live wrap-up as well. But, yeah, huge shout-out or a huge opportunity. So thank you to Fox. I'm excited. And hopefully everybody, if you're not watching the main broadcast, you want to watch on Twitter or YouTube, you can hop on over there and watch the live stream.
I'm just going to say, I'm going to put it out there, Victory Pod, we got to show up and support our guy. Make sure you get on the stream, say that you love Cody. I don't know. I just want to hype you up and make sure the Fox knows that they got a good one.
Well, and a big part of that is doing this stuff. So I can't thank you enough for allowing me to do this. But it is. I wouldn't have the opportunities I have if it wasn't for the Victory Pod, allowing myself to get, they call them highlight tapes or whatever,
the reel,
I get the reel, show what you can do on camera, but having opportunities to do this. So huge shout out and thank you to you.
No.
Doing Trojans live, getting to get in front of a camera, doing Trojans tailgate, doing some of those interview questions as much as I do not like them, getting to do some of that stuff though. So I thank you again for, allowing me to do this. But hopefully everybody can come over and watch and it should be a fun one.
Hype them up. I'm excited.
Yeah,
we'll be promoting it on the Victory Pod socials as well. So if you want to find the link there, you can go there as well. So exciting stuff, Cody. Very excited for you.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's dive into the ASU reaction. I'm just curious your thoughts, Cody. I haven't actually asked you about this at all. First off, just overall thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it was an up and down game. First road environment, first away game. Shout out to Arizona State. I didn't know how big the crowd was going to be. Apparently they sold it out.
Yeah.
Was it pretty loud there?
It was very loud.
Obviously you were there.
It was a good showing.
I could tell when there were some pre-snap penalties early on too, that it was a louder crowd than you could maybe see on the television copy. So that was for me, hey, we better figure this out quick or this can be an issue. And that's something we'll get into a little bit. But overall, I mean, I felt like this team learned how to lean on one another. We haven't played in a tough game yet. And as much as, yes, we would love for it to be a blowout, a walk-away game, get to play some of the younger guys, I'm glad that this happened early on. The first 3 games, obviously, there was really no adversity, no issues that we had there. San Jose State maybe a little bit early on, but we pulled away in that game. But this game, for me, I think is more important to learn about your team in a close game than it is to have another blowout win going into Colorado this week.
Now, after we podcast on Wednesdays, and then I have a sit-down interview with Lincoln on Thursdays, and I had asked him about ASU's defensive coordinator, and that's something you highlighted about that Washington State game. It was an outlier, and then that's what I said in my question. I was like, that was an outlier for your team last season, and he said, oh yeah, we stunk against them. He was like, we played terrible on offense. So this coaching staff had a lot of respect for ASU's defense when I feel like the outside didn't really have that coming in. Did you see those same problems kind of present itself against this defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I love how transparent Lincoln is.
It's incredible.
Awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. It's great when you have a coach that says that, right? He's not going to talk around. He's, hey, we stunk. We got to get better, right? Accountability, that's what you want in a head coach, and obviously Lincoln Riley has that. But that's a good leeway into the offense. Overall, the stats don't look bad, right? 42 points, over 500 yards again of total offense, 535, 322 yards through the air, 213 yards on the ground. The ground game looked amazing that game. Where we needed to be better was third down, only 3 of 10, which is below the season average, which is obviously 30%. You want to be in that 45-50 range as an offense, and then fourth down, we were 1 of 2. Caleb Williams, in my opinion, played well, and some people on Twitter, people talking, felt like he maybe had a little bit of an off game, but that just shows how good Caleb is. And he did. He had some throws there where he would like to have back. A couple that could have been picked, which we're not used to seeing Caleb doing, is putting the ball in harm's way. But still, 20 of 31, 65%, 320 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. So
insane.
If that's a bad game for him, then obviously, the good ones are going to be amazing. Marshawn Lloyd, in my opinion, MVP of the game on offense.
100%.
That and just the fact, Brendan Rice obviously is right there too, had a great game, 7 catches, 133 and 2 touchdowns. But Marshawn Lloyd, for me, this was his most important game of the year. And I say that because when you go on the road, you're always taught what's most important. You pack your run game and you pack your defense, right? That's how you win games. And that's what we did. Although the defense didn't play great, and we'll get into that in a minute, they won us the game there at the end. Couple sacks, couple sack fumbles, had 8 sacks on the day. The stats were great. Obviously, would have liked to see them play a little bit better quarters 1 through 3, but fourth quarter they really buckled down, and those got to have it moments, and we learned a lot about them. But the most important thing for me was learning about Marshawn Lloyd. Now, yes, Austin Jones will be a great 1-2 punch. I still think Austin Jones is a great running back, will have a big role in this offense, but I really feel that Marshawn Lloyd established himself as a lead back on this football team and someone that going forward that we can lean on. Average 11 yards a carry, and it wasn't just 3 carries, 33 yards. He had 14 carries for 154 yards on the ground, and I love seeing how productive he was on the ground game.
One of my favorite things is if I do a post-game interview telling a player a stat that they had in the game because they don't know because they're playing. And okay, sometimes
I was guilty of looking up at because they put the stats up at the stadium, so you might peek a little. I guess running back wise, you don't know though because multiple people could have a rush. But
sure, so,
I would glance here and there at the passing stats.
For Marshawn, I said, you had 11 yards per carry, and he was like, whoa. He was surprised, but it was so fascinating because he said he's never been 4-0 in his college career before. He was like, he said, I made the best decision of my life transferring to USC. I love this team. I can't wait to see what we can do. So it was just amazing to see a guy who was leaned on in the game, but just has so much love for this university already through 4 games.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's absolutely reciprocated. We love that he's here too. I'm so happy he's here. And I think there was kind of I don't want to say guarantee, but it was already leaning that way that Marshawn Lloyd was going to be the lead back, especially with how much production he's had in the last couple games.
Yeah.
It just wasn't said yet. I don't know if the coaching staff have come out and said that or how they've approached this, but the writing's on the wall, right? We've seen 14 carries, 154 yards. Austin Jones, though, is a great running back still. I don't want to take away from him. That's just how deep this USC football team is on offense. And same thing at the receiver position, right? Brendan Rice, it was your day today. 7 catches, 133 yards, 2 touchdowns, but Zachariah Branch also had 4 for 68. Taj Washington was quiet the entire game, but he really put the game away there at the end. 1 catch, 45 yards and a touchdown. Great throw by Caleb. Great job by Taj creating separation. Michael Jackson, 2 catches for 30 yards. So these guys kind of linger around, and it really is week to week. Mario Williams had a little bit of an off game, and he'll say it himself, right? Some of those drops he had early on had a huge 2-point conversion. That catch there towards the end of the game, which in my opinion was awesome to see him get that spark. It really, you could see how excited he was. He was a little frustrated early on, but that's how deep this offense is you don't know week to week who's going to be the guy, especially as receiver. But at the running back position, we have 2 guys that are starter caliber players, and I think it's going to go back and forth, but I really feel Marshawn Lloyd kind of established himself as the 1A, 1B, if you will.
In your opinion, why did the offense, quote unquote, look different against ASU?
First and foremost, and I just kind of touched on that earlier, is penalties, right? The penalties were really, and we didn't have a lot of those at home, which you expect. And what I mean by penalties is not just, holding pre-snap penalties, right? Unforced errors, things that happen when the ball is not snapped yet. We had a couple on the first drive, right? We had a false start. A couple where Dedich snapped the ball early and Caleb took a little shot there. We'll get into, we got a question about that, but unforced errors as well with the fumble between Caleb and Marshawn, right? There was no punch out. There was no tackle. Caleb just went to hand it off and was trying to give it. Marshawn thought he was pulling it. The ball drops on the ground. When you have issues like that we're not used to seeing happen at home through the first 3 weeks, that's when you can leave teams like Arizona State, who is struggling a little bit, who's coming off a 29-0 loss. That's how you keep them in the game. So for me, it was more pre-snap issues rather than it was when the ball was snapped. Because when the ball was snapped, we looked great, right? Caleb was still making great plays. Couple throws he'd like to have back. The offensive line struggled a little bit in pass protection. I guess me just being critical more than I thought they would against this ASU pass rush. On the ground, though, the offensive ground game was amazing. I would have loved to see Marshawn Lloyd maybe get a couple more carries, and I love that Lincoln said that too, is, hey, we maybe should have kept giving him the football. Awesome accountability-wise for Lincoln Riley to come out and say, and it's when you're in the middle of a game, and I've never been a head coach, you're just calling plays, right? You're trying to win a game. When you go back and you can watch film and you can assess what happened, or immediate reaction right after, okay, hey, yeah, I see the stat sheet. We should have got a little more carries here. We should have gave Marshawn the ball a little bit more, but I love that this offense still found a way to win. Now, let's eliminate on the road some of those pre-snap penalties. Let's eliminate those unforced errors because, yes, we got away with it against Arizona State, but if you do that this week against Colorado, if you do that at Notre Dame, if you do that at Oregon, it could be a different story, and it's going to be a bigger hole to climb out of, and you may not be able to do that against some of those better teams. But overall, nothing concern-wise on the offense. I think we learned a lot about this team and the offenses or the offense in general, but it was exciting to watch.
Now, over on the defensive side of the ball, Lincoln Riley said after the game that the biggest disappointment of the night was USC's tackling efforts. And he said, we tackled 3 out of the 4 games well. It was just didn't look like they had their fundamentals on Saturday. What did you see there?
Yeah, and this defense is better, right? Don't get me wrong. And I want to say that that's my starting point. This defense is better. There's better depth. There's better players on the defense than there were a year ago. But Saturday night was a little reminiscent of last year, right? And I think that's why there was so much worry on Twitter from the fans, so much worry on the comment section, all of that. Understandably so, right? That's something that we were trying to leave in the past. Yes, there were some issues with tackles. Yes, there were some issues with some communication. But you do have to understand, again, same thing on the offensive side of the ball. This is the first away game. We're playing some young players. Mason Cobb, in my opinion, hadn't played in about 3 or 4 weeks now, counting the bye, right? Played week 1, hasn't played since. He's a leader of that defense. He looked a little bit, not like he lost a step, but he was getting his football legs back under him, right?
And I talked to him, on Tuesday, and I said, what was that like coming back? And I said 3 weeks with no football, and he said it was actually 4 weeks for me because if you think about the fact that I didn't play that game leading up, and he said I didn't feel like myself out there. And it kind of showed as well. And
again, accountability. I love that. I love that he said that because you can see that on the film when you watch the game back. A little bit slower reacting in the run game, getting to the hole. A little bit slower tackling in space, allowing the runner to come to him instead of attacking downhill. And that's going to take time to get back into a rhythm. Now, obviously, you want to have that game to where you can get back into rhythm, understand what you're doing, get your football legs back under you before you get to the tougher part of the schedule. But overall, defensively, I mean, there were positives. There were obviously some negatives as well. Positive-wise, let's start there. There was a great job. Had 8 sacks on the night. I think the most since you might have tweeted or SC tweeted for the last 10 years maybe?
Yeah, so the last time I found that USC had 8 sacks in a game was in 2009 against Washington State.
Awesome. That's a huge stat to have. That's a positive. We're leading and Power 5-wise, leading the country in sacks. We're leading the country in tackles for loss. We're leading the country in forced fumbles. So there are positives about this football team that weren't there from a year ago. But yes, Saturday night was a little reminiscent with the missed tackles, with guys being out of position in the run game. And what I mean by that is we did such a great job of having big time stops in the run game. We just got to be more consistent, right? And for example, the first drive, right? Unforced error. We had a fumble with Marshawn and Caleb. Sudden change on your own 15-yard line. First down, great job in run defense. Second down, great job in run defense. It's 3rd and 10 from your own or from their 15 going in, and we're showing a cover 0 look. We're being aggressive. Fine. I'm great with that. I love that we're going to be aggressive. I love that we're going to show pressure on 3rd and 10. We trust our guys to cover on the outside, but then they run the football and we leave a wide open gap on the backside. Scattaboo goes right. Easy cutback. Yes, Kalen could have been there a little bit quicker. That was his guy, was the running back in that cover 0 look, but we can't leave those wide open holes. And then we get a 3rd and 6. same thing. Show pressure. They do a little simple pitch out there. Bryson Shaw misses a tackle. They have an easy first down on 3rd and 6 in the run game. They're just little things that add up over time throughout a game to where overall the stats look better on defense. We're playing better as a defense, but you have those plays here and there that make it feel like the game was, I don't want to say negative, but it feels like there's a lot more negatives than positives, but you have to clean those things up when you go against the tougher opponents.
How much of this when you're playing, and we've heard this from coaches and players, where it's like, if we just clean up X, Y, and Z, it looks much better. How much of that applies to ASU?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it wasn't like ASU was at will driving the ball back and forth down the field. Going to the stats, only 28 points, 353 yards of total offense, 263 yards through the air, 90 yards on the ground. They were 6 of 16 on 3rd down, so we played well on 3rd down, only 38%. Where we need to get better, they were 3 of 4 on 4th down, and one of those was the fake that punt. With Scadaboo doing the quick kick. Obviously, you don't game plan for that, but you have to understand when you're playing a team that has nothing to lose, you have to expect everything. And
that's the wild part. And Lincoln Riley kind of previewed that. He was like, yes, they played a certain way against Fresno State, but when you come into town as USC, it's different. And my friends actually describe it as it's everyone's Super Bowl, quote unquote.
100%.
And I'm sure you've experienced this as well, right, Cody?
Yeah, and that's and I saw that where Lincoln Riley was talking about that, and I love that he said that, because when you're at USC or you're at Ohio State, you're at Michigan, you're at Georgia, when you're playing these opponents, whether it's a top 10 team or a team that's struggling, you're going to get their best shot. They're going to put every offensive game plan thing they have going against you. They're going to put all the fake kicks, the fake field goals,
plays,
the fake punt.
Yeah.
You have to expect everything. Lincoln Riley understands that, but that's why the sky is falling. I'm not feeling like everything's going bad, because we weathered all that. We took their best shot. A team that is struggling. You have to understand, though, this is still a Division I football team. There's still good players on that team that can make plays at any given time. But overall, we did a great job of weathering all that, taking their best shot, and still finding a way to win the football game. And we won by 14. It wasn't like we squeaked out a last-minute field goal at the end there. We played well in the 4th quarter, but outside of that, yeah, I mean, the go ball, Sierra Wright's got to be a little bit better in coverage there on the man-to-man go ball. That's one play. The trick where they should have had a touchdown too was the wildcat formation with Scadaboo fake run, trying to throw it to the tight end. Stuff like that you have to expect against teams that have nothing to lose. But overall, I think we did a good job. Can be better, yes. But that's something that we can watch. Okay, we still got the win. It was a tough road environment. It was a tough away game, our first one of the year. Let's learn from that and apply this going forward into Colorado and some of those tougher games down the road.
Now, I know you took stats of this, so I'm going to bring a question up right now. Sean Tong wanted to know, can you provide the stats of USC's linebackers against ASU? So you counted the reps,
yeah,
correct?
So I counted the reps, or I saw the rep count. Stats-wise, Eric Gentry led the night with tackles. He had a team high 9 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. Tackett Curtis had a good game, 7 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackle for loss. But overall, snap count-wise, and this is what was interesting with me, and I know a lot of people felt the same way, especially on Twitter. Snap count-wise, obviously Mason Cobb coming off of injury, right? He had 74 snaps at linebacker. The next highest was Tackett Curtis with 44 snaps. Eric Gentry had 28, and Rajon Davis had 0 for
Same
snap
with Shane
count.
Lee.
And Shane Lee had 0 on defense. So I look at that 2 ways. One is getting Mason Cobb back into the game, right? Getting him ready, getting him comfortable, putting him out there. He's missed 3 or 4 weeks. We've got to have him play. He's got to get back as quick as possible. He's one of our better linebackers on the team. 2, Tackett Curtis, being a younger guy. Let's allow him to get reps on the away game. And yes, he had some missed tackles here and there. He had a couple mistakes here and there as a freshman, your first away game, fine. But he plays well. He does a great job of having a high motor, of having 2 sacks towards the end of the game, having 7 tackles, doing a great job flying around. Eric Gentry, another guy that I was impressed with. A couple missed tackles here and there. The big one on 4th down to Scadaboo. That was his guy out of the backfield. And obviously Max Williams missed a tackle. Got to get him down there on 4th down. So there were some issues with missed tackles there, but I was so surprised with Rajon Davis and Shane Lee not playing, especially how much Lincoln Riley talked about them a couple weeks ago, saying that they're playing at a very high level right now. So the reason for that, I'm not sure, but I think the biggest thing we learned is that when the game is tough, when the game's on the line in the second half, that snap count speaks for itself. Those are guys we're going to see. Now, will that change going forward? Absolutely, it can, but that told us a lot about where this coaching staff is right now with the linebacker rotation.
And to your point, Riley was asked about it on Tuesday, and he said we actually had a plan coming in to rotate the guys more, but the game was obviously closer than they expected. So that's
exactly
goes to your point. I think when it was crunch time, they leaned on who they leaned on.
And that's exactly what he's saying is we had a plan to play guys if the game got out of hand. play some of the guys that aren't starters right now, that aren't going to get a ton of reps, but the game was close. So that's why you see the snap count the way it is, right? That's why Mason Cobb was in there for the entirety of the game. That's why Tackett Curtis played a ton, because even though he's a freshman, they trust him and they want him to get that experience in a close, tough road environment. And then Eric Gentry obviously is a rotational guy right now with Rajon Davis and Shane Lee, whatever it may be. They just don't feel as comfortable with them in that starting rotation or when the game's close. But who knows? I think it will change. I think they're still trying to figure things out. I've seen games with and just not even this team in general where, hey, and I did it as a sophomore with Max Wittick. Rotating reps was you're starting this game and the next week you're starting the next game, right? And that went into 2 or 3 games into the season. You're still learning about how guys are going to play. This was the first away game. They're still trying to figure out how a young Tackett Curtis is going to play, how a transfer Mason Cobb first year in the defense is going to play, how Eric Gentry, who still had some injury issues from a year ago, is going to play. And maybe next week we see a little bit more Rajon Davis and Shane Lee, how they're going to play in a away environment.
Overall, your takeaways from this game?
Yeah, just got to get better. I think the front four is phenomenal. Some of the guys, the stats I highlighted, I put them in all red. Solomon Byrd, still MVP. Phenomenal. 5 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble. Romello Height had a huge game.
Yeah.
5 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, and a fumble recovery off of that fumble by Solomon Byrd. Bear Alexander, 5 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, or 1.5 tackles for loss. Those 3 guys, and then Jamil Muhammad, another guy, 8 tackles, 1 sack, 3 tackles for loss. The front four right now, the rotation of the front four is unbelievable. Keon Barrs didn't play as much as we expected, so that rotation was a little off. But overall, the depth-wise up front is amazing. I really love that. We've just got to be a little bit better at linebacker, and I know they will. Some great leaders in that room, and I know they will. But if we really want to complete front 7, that linebacker group has to pick it up just a little bit. But overall, secondary-wise, I thought we covered well. Outside of a couple big plays here and there, that man-to-man again to Sierra Wright, a couple plays where Pine scrambled, found someone down the field, struggled a little bit with the tight end. That was kind of concerning, just from last year. Had 5 receptions for 71 yards. Their tight end Conyers, but overall, I'm not worried. I'm really not. I think that this is a great learning experience for this defense. I think we learned a lot as a fan base, as outsiders looking in about this defense. Again, who's going to play in crunch time? But it's something you can learn from early on. I'm glad it still finished with a win, but now you've got to fix those things going forward, or else those problems could carry on and cause issues down the road.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Alrighty, I'm excited to jump into this preview for Colorado. Before we do, just want to give a thanks to Audi. Performance is more exhilarating on a real road. Introducing the Audi Q5. Visit your SoCal Audi dealers, proud sponsors of USC Trojans. And at Ralph's, everyone wins when it comes to saving big, because when you order online through the Ralph's app, you get the same great prices, deals, and rewards on pickup or delivery that you do in store. So no matter how you shop, you always save big at Ralph's. Ralph's, fresh for everyone. Fight on. Alrighty, Cody, it is time for USC versus Colorado. I know you like starting with the coaching staff, and what better week to start with the coaching staff, considering this is a fun one this week.
Yeah, so we got head coach, obviously, Deion Sanders. First year at Colorado. I didn't go too in-depth with him. Obviously, everyone knows who he is. One of the all-time great football players. Outside of coaching, just someone that was so much fun watching growing up. 16 years in the NFL, first ballot Hall of Famer. But coaching-wise, he went into broadcasting first, then got into coaching. He was the head coach at Jackson State. I know everybody probably remembers that storyline from 2020 to 2022. Won 2 conference titles there. Brought Travis Hunter with him. Brought his son, Shador Sanders, with him. Brought his other son, Shiloh Sanders, with him. So he brought a lot of great players there. And then, yes, he brought them with him to Colorado. But he also got some good coaches around him. Their offensive coordinator is Sean Lewis. It's his first year at Colorado. Has been coaching for 15 years. Very good offensive coordinator. We've already seen that early on with the production that Colorado's had on offense. He was the offensive coordinator and QB coach at Bowling Green in 2015. While at Bowling Green, they averaged 536 yards per game, which was 4th in all of college football, and 42 points per game, which was 6th in college football. Then from there, he went to Syracuse as the OC from 2016 to 2017. And then most recently, he was the head coach at Kent State from 2018 to 2022 before coming to Colorado. Now, defensive coordinator, and someone that obviously Deion Sanders, being a defensive player, probably spent a lot of time on this hire, and you can see why. That is Charles Kelly. His first year at Colorado, very good coach. Long list of experience. Been coaching for 33 years. Was a linebacker coach, special teams coordinator at Florida State in 2013. Was the defensive coordinator and DB coach at Florida State. Got promoted in 2014, 2017. Then he was the safety special team coordinator at Tennessee in 2018. And then most recently was at Alabama as the associate defensive coordinator and safety coach from 2019 to 2022. And while he was there, had a very good defense that he coached. Went 47-6 under Nick Saban, and they won the 2020 national championship. So he is a very respected coach and doing a great job with this defense. Now, we'll get into that. They've got a little bit of pieces that they'd like to have that they don't quite have at Alabama, but overall, a solid coaching staff for Colorado.
Interesting already. Now, when it comes to Colorado's offense, obviously some weapons there, and defensive coordinator Alex Grinch was previewing the matchup on Tuesday, and he said, yes, they had an off game against Oregon, but that doesn't mean you can count out this offense.
Absolutely. And that's why when I went over their offense, I didn't just watch the Oregon game, right? I went back and watched how they played against TCU. I watched a little bit of the Nebraska game, a little bit of the Colorado State game. Now going to the stats first, offensively, total points per game, 32 points. A game 50th in college football, 409 yards per game, which is 57th in college football. This is where they really excel. Total passing yards per game, 353 yards per game, which is 5th in all of college football. And this is where they struggle and they have to get better at. They only average 55 yards per game on the ground, which is 130th, which is dead last in college football. They're the lowest in yards per game on the ground. And that's been an issue for them getting this offense started, right? Shedeur Sanders is a great quarterback, in my opinion. I think he's better than a lot of people expected him to be. He's so much fun to watch. He's absolutely going to play on Sundays, but it's so tough as a quarterback to continue to be productive, and that's what we saw against Oregon when you don't have a solid running game. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But third down conversion, they're right around average, 45%, and then fourth down, not afraid to go for it on fourth down. They're at 75% there.
Now, when it comes to the key players, you've already mentioned one, Shedeur Sanders. What do you see from him as a quarterback?
Yeah, Shedeur Sanders he's a mature quarterback. He's a junior, 6'2", 215 pounds. So far, his stats on the season, 130 for 169, 77% completion percentage, which is through the roof. Has 1,400 yards, 11 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. He does such a great job of protecting the football. And again, like I just said, he's better than a lot of people expected him to be this season, especially going from Jackson State, now playing in a Power 5 conference, playing against some good opponents. And it's not like they started out playing some lesser opponents, right? They played TCU on the road. They played Nebraska. Then they went and played Colorado State game that was a very crazy environment, college game day or whatever it was. I think it was college game day, one of the bigger games.
Yeah.
And night game, everyone in the country was watching, showed that he was clutch, came back and won the game.
Double overtime.
Yeah, double overtime game. But in my opinion, if you let him sit back there and pick you apart, that's where he excels, right? Oregon did a great job of collapsing the pocket and getting pressure on him, made it a little bit more difficult, and they covered well in the back end. But overall, great quarterback. Now, their running back, who you're going to see most of the time out there, is running back Dylan Edwards, true freshman, 5'9", 170 pounds. Now, he's had 28 carries for 157 yards and 1 touchdown on the ground through 3 games, averaging 5.6 yards on the ground. But where they really use him at is in the pass game. He has 17 receptions, 169 yards, and 3 touchdowns through the air, which I think is 3rd or 4th on their receiving list, and that's including receivers, tight ends, all of that. He has more receptions or more receiving yards than he does rushing yards and more touchdowns through the air than he does on the ground.
Wild.
Yeah, the other 2 running backs you'll see are Anthony Hankerson and Sivion Wilkerson is another guy you'll see. Now, the wide receiver to look for, the guy that you're going to want to key on the most on Saturday's wide receiver.
A red dot guy?
Yeah, he's a red dot guy. I got 3 this week.
Okay.
And I'll explain it after I get these last couple guys. But Xavier Weaver, 6'1", 180. That is Shedeur's favorite target. 34 receptions, 461 yards, 2 touchdowns on the year. The second guy in line is wide receiver Jimmy Horn Jr., 27 receptions, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns. And the last guy that's had a lot of production, huge in the red zone, had 2 touchdowns in overtime against Colorado State, really won them that football game, is tight end Michael Harrison, 14 receptions, 135 yards, 3 touchdowns, 6'3", 215 junior. More of, not comparing him to him, but more of a Travis Kelce type, more of a wide receiver type tight end, not huge in the run game, but he absolutely can hurt you and create a mismatch in the pass game.
Now, as far as red dot guys, I feel like we've identified 2 of the 3, but take it away.
Yeah, I'm going Shedeur Sanders, obviously. That's who their offense runs through. He's my red dot guy. He's probably number 1 red dot guy. Now, outside of that, Xavier Weaver, wide receiver, and then running back Dylan Edwards. Again, their run game is not quite there yet. They struggle, again, last in all of college football in yards per game, but they use him so much in both run and pass game, and he's great. He does a great job out of the backfield, very good at catching passes. So my third red dot guy is running back Dylan Edwards. So
if you're USC, your defensive coordinator, Alex Grinch, you're obviously trying to shut down the pass game and force them to use their weakness, which is the run game.
Yeah, and I was, watching film. Obviously, I kind of gave a rundown of what they do well, who their main guys are, but how you stop them on defense is, in my opinion, what Oregon did last week. And what they did so well was collapse the pocket, right? And when Shedeur Sanders can sit back there and pick you apart, can do the little back pedal, move around, allow guys to get open, that's when he's dangerous. He's very accurate. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes when he throws the football. Only 1 interception on the year, with 11 touchdowns, and he does such a great job of throwing his guys open when they do have good coverage. But where he struggled last week was he didn't have time. It's tough as a quarterback to throw the football when you're constantly running around, when you're on your back, when you're getting these sacks. And Oregon did such a great job of, and they didn't even bring a lot of pressure. It wasn't like they were bringing 6, 7, 8-man all-out pressures. They were bringing 3-man rush, 4-man rush, doing a great job collapsing the pocket, getting home. But where they really excelled outside of that was coverage in the back end, right? So the biggest thing for USC this week is going to be collapse the pocket, suffocate the pocket. Don't allow Shedeur to sit back there and play 7-on-7 and pick you apart. And we have to cover for more than 3 seconds in the back end. If we can do those two things, we should see a similar result. Now, I don't want to say score-wise, but the struggles that Colorado had last week on offense against Oregon should be similar this week if we can do those two things.
Given what we've seen from USC's defensive line, their front seven, this seems like a good matchup if you're a USC fan, right?
Yeah. I'm very confident this week going into it with the defensive line for USC. Obviously, linebacker play can improve, and we said that last week, and they're going to be needed in both, right? Run game, Colorado will try to get things going. They do. It's very similar on offense what Lincoln Riley does, right? We'll see some of those where we have Lake McCree offset just off the line of scrimmage, or Jude Wolf back there just offset, those slide motions, those downhill. They do a good amount of guard tackle pulling, the GT counter stuff that USC does. They love to use pullers in the run game on offense. They just don't quite have the guys yet, right? Their offensive line has struggled a little bit this year. They've been solid, decent in pass protection, but overall defensive line going against Colorado's offensive line, USC has an advantage there, so I'm excited to watch that matchup. But the big part is going to be how well can we cover in the back end? Can we play man-to-man? Can we get a rush home on Shedeur Sanders without having to bring all these different pressures and still play great man-to-man coverage in the back end?
If Colorado is somewhat similar to USC as far as offense, do you have an advantage as a defense knowing that you've gone up against them since July?
Yeah, absolutely. In my opinion, I think it's going to be a very similar to how we prepared for ourselves. Now, obviously, player or personnel wise isn't quite there, and
sure.
and Deion Sanders said that, right? And he was very, like Lincoln Riley, very blunt about it, very upfront, very honest. He said, "Hey, this is if you want to get me now, right? Because we're only going to get better. We're only going to get better players. You got to understand, this is still his first year coaching there.
They
went
wild.
1-11 from last year, and in my opinion, they've already exceeded expectations. And that's not a disrespectful thing because obviously they want to continue to win games. But there were a lot of people in college football, and I wasn't one of them. I thought, what's happening now, it doesn't surprise me as much because I thought, hey, when you have Coach Sanders, when you have a team that believes in themselves, when you have a group of guys that knows they can win, that don't care about what the team did last year, and you have a lot of new transfer players and great leaders with Shedeur Sanders, with Travis Hunter, with Shiloh on the defensive side, Trevor Woods, a safety that stuck around. When you have great leaders on a team, you can go out and win these close games. You can go out and win games that a lot of people think maybe you shouldn't. Now, when you play the Oregons of the world, yes, there's going to be, hey, we've got to get a little bit more depth here. We've got to get some better players personnel-wise and continue to build off of and get these guys more comfortable. But overall, in my opinion, this team looks very good. They look very dangerous, and they're a team that can go out and win any given Saturday.
It's interesting, too, because Lincoln Riley said, there's more similarities than not between what Coach Sanders was coming into and what I was coming into at USC. Like it's a unique situation to be in, obviously, as a head coach, to come in and have these expectations placed on you that you need to make a complete 180 and do it fast.
Yeah, and what I mean by saying exceeded expectations is Coach Sanders has already won this year, right? Colorado football has already won this year, and what I mean by that in the long run is, yes, we count wins and losses, records, all that. Yes, that matters. But what he's done for the Colorado program in only 4 weeks and 4 games to turn it around the way that he has, to get people excited about Colorado, to have them on Big Noon kickoff against USC, to have them on ESPN Game Day against Colorado State, who's not a huge opponent, to have that excitement around Colorado football, to sell the sunglasses, to get all the fans coming out. Dan Lanning last week, obviously going back and forth with the click comment, and it makes it exciting. It makes college football so much fun, and Colorado has not had that in a long time, especially since I've been here. I really don't remember the last time that Colorado was that exciting to watch, had been that. I mean, they were the talk of college football for the last couple of weeks. And yes, they lost to Oregon last week, and people are saying overrated, and no, that's not true. It's just showing that, hey, we're still a little bit of ways away. We still got to do better. But this is only Deion Sanders not even been there for a full year. What he's already done. And for people to say overrated to a team that was 1-11 a year ago, you're doing something right? So it's going to be an exciting game this week. A huge tip of the cap to Colorado. Deion Sanders, what he's doing there. I'm so excited for this game. Obviously not a rivalry game, not at Notre Dame or UCLA, but a lot of people are excited to watch this football game Saturday.
And that's, and to your point, another point there, it's exciting. The fact that we're excited to go to Boulder and watch this matchup, like that's something we're
haven't done in a while.
USC teams in the past, like we would get questions like, are they going to sleepwalk through this game? Like that's not, we're not talking about that right now. So So it's another tip of the cap to Coach Sanders for the fact that this is the branding for Colorado is completely different.
Yeah, and he's there to stay. He said that himself. Right? They asked him, is the NFL next? Is bigger programs next? Now, will that happen? Obviously, people go different journeys throughout their career. Coaches bounce around. You're never going to stay somewhere for too long. And there are outliers, the Nick Sabans of the world, the coaches that stay there for a long time. Whittingham at Utah.
Yeah.
But overall, you may bounce around. But right now, why leave? You've got sales are through the roof. The ticket sales for Colorado. Not only that, again, selling the sunglasses, selling jerseys.
Talk about that power. You put something on your face and suddenly you're selling millions.
A big thing about college football, NIL. NIL is through the roof now for that Colorado program with how much hype, how much attention they're getting. So, again, great job for them. Deion Sanders doing a great job turning that football program around. But that's what you get when you get a guy like Deion Sanders, right? He did it in the NFL, talked a big game when he was a player. Now he talks a big game as a coach, and he's one of the guys that can back it up.
Now over to the defense. What do you expect from them?
Yeah, defensive stats-wise, this is where they struggle. Again, they've got to get better, and they've got to improve. Charles Kelly, again, like I mentioned, a very good defensive coordinator. Spent time at Alabama, has been coaching for 33 years. You just have to continue to get the pieces in place. So overall, defensive stats-wise, 33 points per game allowed, 113th in college football. They allow 475 yards a game, which is 125th in college football, 269 yards through the air allowed a game, 111th in college football, 206 yards on the ground, which is 121st. Again, this is out of 130. And then on third down, they've been decent, allowing opponents to 45%. Fourth down, they've excelled, though, only allowing opponents to 44%. But again, overall defense that's playing fast, is playing aggressive, that have sparks and flashes here and there. They just got to get a little bit more depth and better personnel-wise.
And speaking of their personnel, is there anyone you're highlighting?
Yeah, I mean, the guys that stick out on the stat sheet is linebacker Jawan Mitchell. He leads the team in tackles with 28. Now safety Shiloh Sanders, Deion's son, very good football player, very instinctive football player. We saw that huge pick six against Colorado State. Played well last week, had some plays here and there that flash, has 26 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception, which was that pick six. Another good player for them was their safety Trevor Woods, 25 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 2 interceptions, 1 pass defense. And then their linebacker Marvin Ham, their leading tackler, in my opinion, actually outside of Jawan Mitchell, linebacker, but their other linebacker that does a good job of flying around and getting to the football, 25 tackles, 1 sack. And then their other safety, Cameron Silman Craig, he has 18 tackles, 1 sack, 2 interceptions. And then their other linebacker, who isn't necessarily, he's more of a Russian. They do 4 down. They will do 3 down as well. 6'3", 250 pounds is Jordan Dominic. He has 15 tackles, 2 sacks, and 1 fumble recovery. So those are the main guys that I looked at when I watched film that stood out to me. And then I know what's coming next.
Unfortunately, there's not a name on this list as key players. Travis Hunter, unfortunately, is not playing because he's out.
Oh, yeah. And that was tough, too, because you watch their film. Let me pause for a second. He's a stud. That kid is so good at football.
I'm so upset that we don't get to see him play.
I know. And I saw a rumor. I heard that Shiloh might be out, too. I don't know the injury report. I saw he might be out as well.
Yeah.
Dealing with some injury. I don't know exactly what it was, but I saw a couple comments.
I think it was a kidney issue.
For Shiloh?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So if that's the case, obviously you want, and that's tough because you want, when you play a football team, you want their best players out there, right? You want to win games, yeah, sure, but you want to go against best. Iron sharpens iron. But yeah, Travis Hunter, didn't get to talk about him, didn't get to go over his stats, but he is an unbelievable football player, an even better kid too. I love watching, he does like this little stream thing. I watch some of his clips, him talking about the games afterwards, or he'll get on YouTube or some of these streaming things. Great kid, great athlete, great teammate. And again, it's just someone that you love to have on your football team, and a guy that's playing both ways, right? He's going
unreal.
Defense 60-plus snaps, offense 60-plus snaps, and not complaining about it, going out there and putting his body on the line for his brother. So unfortunately, we don't get to talk about him this week.
As far as red dot guys?
Yeah, I put Shiloh Sanders, again, if he plays. Yeah. I'm not sure if he's going to be in or out. So he is the red dot guy for me, and then the other one is Trevor Woods, their other safety. Their front 7 struggles a little bit. You know, they don't get to the quarterback. They don't do a good job of getting to the quarterback. They don't do a good job of creating havoc in the backfield. They struggle in the run game. Oregon kind of did what they want and ran the ball at will. They also threw the ball with Bo Nix, not having any issues in pressure. They do a good job of covering in the back end. So I'm going to say Shiloh Sanders and Trevor Woods are really the kind of leaders on their defense in the back end, their safeties that run that whole thing.
So if you're USC's offense, do you attack their weaknesses, or do you just go out there and play Caleb Williams playing football?
Yeah, I think the latter. You just go out there and play football, right? Do what we do well. They don't really excel in either area when it comes to stats-wise. Now, they do have good players. Yes, they want to get a little bit more depth. They have a great defensive coordinator. Deion Sanders, one of the greatest defensive players of all time. So the knowledge is there. The ability to call the right schemes, to do the right things is there. They just got to get a little bit more depth, a little bit better personnel-wise, and they've got to get a little bit more comfortable with each other, not playing, this is like USC's defense from last year. It's a lot of similarities. It's tough going into your first year, learning a new scheme, a whole new coaching staff, over 80 transfer players that have never played together, and that's more than USC had. That's more than any team I think has ever had, trying to build that continuity and that comfortability playing together every Saturday. You've got to learn week to week. But yeah, if you're USC and you're Lincoln Riley and you're this offense, you go out and do what you've been doing well. Obviously, watch the Oregon tape, see what they did well, see where they exposed Colorado a little bit in the run game, in the pass game. RPOs is going to be huge this week for USC's offense, something they excel at. Oregon struggled heavily with, or Colorado struggled heavily covering Oregon with RPOs. With even quick game, Oregon played very fast. I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of up-tempo this week with Caleb Williams in this offense. So, this is a game that USC's offense should excel. It just depends on how we show up and how well we handle that road environment.
Interesting. Okay, so any other thoughts previewing this matchup, or should we get into the keys to the game?
I love it. I'm talking fast. I'm excited. I'm getting into it. I feel like I'm getting ready to go play. I will say, though, Colorado, who they are identity-wise overall, just for people who like to scheme-wise, they will go 3 down. They will go 4 down. They're really not consistent with either one. They will mix it up. They're not a huge pressure team. They like to play coverage more in the back end. They do a lot of drop 8. They will bring pressure here and there, but that's not their MO. They like to just rush 3 or 4, play a lot of coverage in the back end. They're not a huge man team. They like to play a lot of zone. So if they do play man, that's where we can take advantage of some of those one-on-one shots outside. They did that against Oregon. They gave up some big plays, but where they struggle, and this is a communication-wise, even when they drop 8, they leave a lot of holes in the secondaries. You see a good amount of missed assignments, MOs, missed opportunities for them in the secondary, guys not being in the right spot. That's going to come with experience, but overall, this defense will be fun to watch, and I can't wait to see how USC bounces back from last week on the offensive side of the ball.
On that note, Cody, it's time for the USC Pharmacy prescription to win. We got to get into the keys to the game for USC. First up, focus on yourselves.
Yeah, big noon kickoff. Ton of media hype, ton of social media hype, right? A lot of build up to this football game. Colorado's been a huge story in college football. So has USC. So you got to go out there Saturday, block out all that outside noise, and perform on the field.
Second key to the game, take the next step in a road environment. Obviously, USC had their first road game of the year against Arizona State.
Yeah, we got to clean up some penalties from last week. A lot of those unforced errors, those pre-snap penalties, couple false starts, couple delay games on the offensive side of the ball, couple unforced turnovers. So we've got to clean those up. Can't keep the other teams' crowd in the game that way. We got to go out there and perform better, and I expect us to learn a lot from last week and apply that going into this game.
Now, the third and final key to the game, make Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders uncomfortable in the pocket.
Yeah, we did a great job last week against Arizona State, really closing that game out in the fourth quarter with our front 4. A couple sacks in the backfield, also got a forced fumble there. We've got to carry that same momentum into this week. Shedeur Sanders is a very good quarterback, but where he really excels is when he can sit back in the pocket and pick you apart and treat it like a 7-on-7. So we've got to be very aggressive up front, collapse that pocket, and force him to get outside and try to create plays with his feet.
Alrighty, it's time to get into questions. Before we do, just want to thank Audi. What if there was a portal to the future? Enter the fully electric Audi Q4 e-tron with an advanced touchscreen infotainment system. Audi, the future awaits. And thanks to Symbiotica, take your health to the next level with Symbiotica. Their premium, easy-to-take supplements fuel your body with key vitamins and minerals to help you reach peak performance on and off the field. Elevate your health today by going to Symbiotica.com and use code FIGHTON for 15% off site-wide. I said minerals right, Cody.
Bang. That was good.
Thank you.
That was one take.
Cody pointed out before the show that I say minerals weird, so I tried
I did not say that.
You did.
I said the only time you mess up on that, because we preview what ad reads are doing. I said the only time you mess up on that ad read is the minerals. I'm not complaining, though. It's a tongue twister. When I did the post-game radio show,
it's hard.
Jason Schwartz said, do you want
to
read some of them? Yeah, shout out Jason. He gave me a couple, and I was like, no. And then he finally gave me one that I was like, okay, it was like 5 words. I said, I can do that one. And I was trying to read some of them pre-show, and it's hard. It was a tongue twister.
Well, anyway, time for questions, Cody.
Okay.
Our first question comes from Josh, and he said, how will Colorado stop our receivers without Travis Hunter and Shiloh Sanders playing? Now, we actually went back and looked it up since you and I weren't sure earlier in the show. The injury for Shiloh seems much more serious than we originally thought. It's a kidney issue. He had to go to the ER after the Oregon game, so it sounds like he will not play. Obviously, we wish him the best, but yeah, so just wanted to give an update since we weren't exactly sure earlier.
Yeah, and I saw that he might be out in one of the things on Twitter I saw, and then obviously Travis Hunter as well, but yeah, we didn't know it was that serious, so hopefully he can get healthy, get better soon. Both Travis and Shiloh, two great football players, so much fun to watch. But outside of that, it kind of goes back to my red dot guy. Obviously, safety Trevor Woods is going to have a big factor in the secondary. Another guy is Cameron Silman-Craig, their other safety, who will fill in for Shiloh. 18 tackles, 1 sack, and 2 interceptions. So those will be the leaders in the secondary. But overall, I'd expect to see a lot of zone this game, and that's what they normally do. That's their MO on the defensive side of the ball. But who knows? They may change it up. Last week against Oregon, they tried to go rush 3, drop 8. They tried to just rush 4, play too high, play zone coverage, and Oregon picked them apart. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach this week against USC.
Roger had 2 questions. First one, he said, do you think Dedich and Caleb have seemed out of sync for the first 4 games?
No, I don't. I think they've done a good job, especially the first 3. I really felt like they were on the same page. Now, again, it's the beginning of the year. You're going to have a couple things to learn from, a couple things you can improve on. You're going to be full. In my opinion, you get to full form. You get to peak mode week 7, week 8, week 9, and beyond. That's when you really get to that, or even halfway through the season. But the first couple of weeks are some learning experience, some things you can build off of. But no, I think Caleb and Justin have been great so far this season. Obviously, last week, a concern, and I get where he's coming from because of some of those pre-snap penalties, false starts, delay of games could be a factor. The snap that caused Caleb a little bit of pain, one of those issues.
We have a question about that.
Okay, but some of those, yes, could have been a factor, and they'll say it themselves. We can get a little bit more on the same page, but there's really no concerns for me.
And Roger also wanted to know, with away games coming up in loud stadiums, what can quarterbacks and the center do to avoid miscommunications?
Yeah, just got to practice throughout the entire week of making sure, and you do. So before you start practice, the number one thing we do with any team I've ever been on, I'm sure USC does the same, is you do quarterback center exchange, right? You go over there, you take the one starting quarterback and the starting center, you take the backup center, backup quarterback, and you practice pre-snap exchange. That's under center, from gun, whatever the snap count is that week. A huge thing that Coach Riley does at practice is follow them around with those loudspeakers, create that away game environment, whether it's a clap, whether it's a leg lift, whatever it may be. You just have to make sure throughout that week in practice that you're on the same page so that when you get to games on Saturdays, there's no confusions. And that's something we've got to clean up from last week.
John said, if you were offensive coordinator, how would you attack Colorado's defense?
Yeah, I think we just got to be balanced. Like I said, there's really nowhere they excel on the defensive side of the ball. This is a team that's trying to get better, that's still putting pieces together. I think offensively, we keep doing what we're doing. I think what's going to be really important in this game, though, to be more specific, RPOs, right? That's something that USC has excelled at. Keep doing them. Allow Caleb to have those zone read options, whether pulling it or giving the ball to Marshawn or Austin, and then allow him, after he pulls it, to kick it out to Taj Washington, to kick it out to Zachariah Branch. Allow us to get our athletes in space and force Colorado to tackle.
We got a question from Savannah who said, it felt like Caleb Williams couldn't get in a rhythm last week. Cody, what did you see from the ASU defense that could have shaken you or thrown you off like that?
Yeah, I think the one thing that really stood out, it's not a glaring issue, it's just we've seen them be so efficient at it throughout the year. I think ASU's pass rush gave us a little bit more trouble than we expected. It forced Caleb off his spot, and that's where he's so good, right? That's where he excels, is creating those plays that seem like they're dead. And he had a great one to Brendan Rice late in the game where he scrambled outside. O-line did a great job protecting, but there were just a couple times when he did scramble, it felt like he was trying to force some throws, which are uncharacteristic of Caleb. But again, this goes back to the point of Caleb's not getting a rhythm, but he had 320 yards passing, 5 total touchdowns, 65% completion percentage. So if that's him not in a rhythm, a little bit of off game, USC's obviously in great hands.
Joe said, do you foresee USC leaning on Marshawn Lloyd as heavily as they did against ASU?
Yeah, I think that's what he established last week. Now, obviously, we have a great 1-2 punch with Marshawn Lloyd and Austin Jones. I still expect to see a lot of Austin Jones this year, but it sounds like for me, or it looks like watching the film back, and obviously this last game kind of confirmed that Marshawn Lloyd is going to be the lead back going forward, and I'm fully on board with that. I think he can build off of that performance from last week, and his confidence is probably at an all-time high that it's been this year, especially from that first half of football. How far he's come, right? He said, hey, I wasn't comfortable. I was trying to force it. Now he's comfortable. Now he's in a rhythm, and this was really his breakout game for USC, and we needed him last week on the road against in a tough environment, and we were really struggling on offense. He was that spark that created that momentum on offense.
Kai wanted to know, do you think Alex Grinch will take a more aggressive approach this week, knowing how weak Colorado's offensive line is?
Yeah, I'd like to see a little bit more pressure, but I think what we can do is what we did last week in the fourth quarter against ASU, right? Allow our front four to get home. They did such a great job. We have such a dominant front four, not only the starters, but the depth behind that, right? With Bear Alexander, Jameel Muhammad, Anthony Lucas, another really good player up front. Solomon Byrd, MVP of the defense of the year. Mermello Heights really coming on strong right now. I wouldn't expect to see a ton of pressure. I would just like to see our front four get home and cover well, or get home and create havoc in the backfield, and then have our secondary and our linebackers cover well in the back end.
Manny wanted to know what changes need to be made from the ASU game to Colorado. And I think Lincoln Riley answered this himself, just improvement on tackling.
Yeah, improvement on tackling. And are we talking both sides of the ball or defense? Or
I think defense.
Okay, so yeah, improvement on tackling. got to stay in our gaps in the run game, right? I'm fine with being aggressive, walking up, showing all-out pressure, whether we bring it or we get out of it, fine. But you have to be fundamentally sound. You have to be gap disciplined and stay in your gaps in the run game. That's where Arizona State hurt us a little bit last week, was us showing those pressure looks, us showing walking 5 or 6 guys up, and then giving up a couple gaps on the backside, allowing some cutbacks, allowing them to get the edge on the outside. We can show pressure. We can be aggressive. Just have to be gap disciplined and not give up big runs.
And Jorge asked, do you have any concern with the chunk yards that USC gave up on defense? But I feel like that points to what you just answered.
Yeah, it's similar things here. And obviously there was a couple plays in the pass game, but it was reminiscent of some of the issues we had from last year, right? And that's something that's where I can't wait to see how we take that next step this year, right? That was something last year that people would complain about, rightfully so. There'd be some issues, there'd be some concerns, and we just didn't seem to get it fixed from week to week. This year's an opportunity, right? We had a little bit of a letdown on the defense of how good we've been playing for the first 3 weeks. Now let's see how they approach that this week. Another tough road environment coming up against Colorado, a very good offense. Let's see how we improve from last week and take that step forward.
Michael said, is it possible that the defense is over-communicating or overthinking?
No, I don't think so. I think there was a couple times on defense you could see Bear throwing his hands up, maybe a call getting in late, but it's tough sometimes when you have an Arizona State offense who goes fast, who likes to change plays at the line, trying to be in sync with that. But I don't think it was really over communication. I think it was just trying to get in the right play, especially in a road environment. It's a little bit louder. It's a little bit different atmosphere. It's not at home. It's not as comfortable. You have to be able to see the signals. You can't really hear the coaches yelling at the call. So I think it was a factor of being in a road environment and kind of being in, first time at an away game.
We got a lot of questions wondering certain playing time decisions, and the truth of the matter is we're not in the rooms. Like, we don't have an answer for that. We do know what the coaches said on Tuesday, and both Alex Grinch and Lincoln Riley said that the margins are thin as far as playing time, and he said overall it's a good thing. Lincoln Riley did, because that means that there's more talent in the room, but we really don't know what separates certain guys, just because, one, we don't fully know their assignments, and two, we're not in the room. So it's a tough one to answer. I understand why we're getting so many of those questions, but I don't think we have anything to really provide clarity, because we're not the coaches in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'd love to be a fly on the wall and hear these meetings and all that. But there's really 3 ways that you become a starter. You play well as A, is you do great in practice, right? Or B, you have an injury, someone ahead of you, and you get that opportunity. Or C, you're just going into a position battle back and forth. I think it's a combination of all those things, especially when you have so much depth at a position. Is every week is a competition, right? You don't know who may play. Some guy may play more this week. Some guy may play more next week. It may mix up. It may rotate a lot. We saw that through the first couple of weeks. Now, yes, there were games that were, very big margin and scoring wise, so we got to see some of these younger guys, but I think last week taught us a lot about the rotation, but there still could be some changes going forward.
Speaking of many questions, we got many questions, Cody, specifically asking if you ever been snapped into a place that the ball has been snapped where you would not like it to go.
Yeah, that was, so going back to Caleb took a shot there. So what happened on that was Caleb was in a ghost type of play, right? So where he's said, hot, faking a snap count, where they look over to Lincoln Riley, let's call a play based off of what they're doing on defense. So Caleb walked up, said, easy, or we always say easy, hey, easy, soft, don't snap the ball, I'm walking up to change the play. Arizona State jumped, which I think Dedich thought, okay, we got a free play, they're offside, let's snap it, or it just made him twitch because they jumped, or he's trying to get an offside penalty. Caleb's obviously not ready, so that was a very unfortunate play for Caleb. Don't want to see that happen, but the way he slow-mo fell and all of that was a little comedic relief there during the middle of the game. But no, I can personally say I've never had that happen or had an issue with that, and thankfully so.
I was about to say congrats. That's never happened to you.
That's a win. That's a win for me.
For sure. Aaron wanted to know, Cody, as a quarterback, did you ever think, why is the coach asking us to run this play when the run or the pass is obviously working? Hope that makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I never really did, and I get what you're saying. And you hear, especially in the NFL nowadays, some guys will Justin Fields just did it, right? Saying, hey, the coaches are doing one thing, I think another way. You may have a little bit of miscommunication between coaches and players. Obviously, Lincoln and Caleb have none of that. For me, it was never that way either. I was fortunate enough to play for some great offensive coordinators, and we were always on the same page of why we're calling this play at this time, why we're doing this, or in between series, hey, these are the next 3 plays we're going. If we go to a third down, this is what we're going to do. Majority of the time, you expect quarterback and play caller to be on the same page, and I feel like Lincoln and Caleb always are.
Bush55 said, Cody, as a player, do you feel like trash talk / bulletin board material / social media is a motivation or a hindrance? Do other guys on the team get mad at their teammates for fanning the flames or riling the other team up? Which is a great question.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of giving bulletin board material. I love when you get it. I love when a team talks trash. You know, you love to create an enemy on the field and know, hey, I want a little extra motivation. While obviously you go out every week to win the game. When there's a little extra motivation, you can absolutely feel that in the adrenaline when you get out on the field. Tom Brady, I don't know if anybody's seen that, just did an interview recently, which was unbelievable to watch. If you haven't seen it, go watch it, about him talking about where I would create enemies on the field. I didn't have friends. You know, I'd be like, hey, what did that guy say? Or did he disrespect me?
Goodness.
Even if it was true or not. And that's just that competitor or competitive warrior mentality you want to get into. But yeah, I was always frustrated if guys on our team would guarantee a win or say, hey, we're going to blow this team out, or say something that would give them a little extra motivation. You just never want to have that coming from your side. You always want to be humble and then let your play on the field do all the talking.
Makes sense. Jake said, Cody, what would you do pregame if you were playing a game this Saturday at 10 a.m.?
I have no idea. I really don't.
What would the eating schedule be for you?
Nothing. I'd probably do maybe like 2 bites of oatmeal and like an apple and then call it a day. I could not eat.
I understand that,
pregame, and especially waking up that early. The best part about it is, or maybe I would eat. Who knows? I've never had a game that early. Maybe you lose all the nerves.
And you're just like...
Because it builds up throughout the day, right? You wake up and you're like, all right, we've got time. Then it's 4 hours of kickoff. Then it's 3, 2. And then you get a little bit more nervous, a little more anxious. But maybe if I woke up and had a game where you wake up and it's go time, what I'm going to be most curious to see is, are they going to be able to do all their pregame walkthroughs that morning like you normally do?
Yeah.
You do walkthroughs the day of a game. You wake up, walk through, breakfast, all that. Or is it going to be pregame walkthroughs at night, knock all that out, the night before, but then you're going to have to go to bed early because you got to wake up early, so you don't have all that time. It's going to be interesting to see how Coach Riley and his staff do this. But yeah, for me, I probably would take a couple bites of food and get ready to go play.
But wouldn't you be nervous that wouldn't fuel you enough?
No, because I would also do those little hydration gels, put them in the Powerade and then drink those. Okay. Or I would do like a little bar or something at halftime. Or we'd have like peanut butter and honey sandwiches.
Oh,
so I would eat at halftime. Yeah, it's pretty good.
I'm hungry right now.
We would have a lot of stuff to fuel up during the game or at halftime. I just, pregame meal before the game started, that whole
I get that
nervous, anxious feeling, I just couldn't eat.
I get that. Alan wanted to know, how big is it for Dennis Lynch to earn a scholarship? So if you didn't know, Dennis Lynch, USC's place kicker, got a scholarship over the weekend. He had a clutch 53-yarder against ASU, which was tied for the third longest in USC history. So Congrats to him. So Alan wanted to know, how big is it? How does this scholarship magically appear? And aren't scholarships spoken for prior to the season?
The first one I can answer is huge for his confidence. I've got to give a shout out to Dennis too. That during the game, I don't think people realize, and we got a call about this on the post-game show, but how important that field goal was, right? It was 21-24.
Yes.
Right? The momentum was not in our favor. That was a 53-yarder.
Yeah.
And if he misses that, Arizona State has a short field.
Yep.
And now they're only down 3 going down, and it's the second half. It's just everything could have gone a different direction, but he nailed that 53-yarder. Was awesome to see. Huge shout out to Dennis Lynch. Also had, I think, a 40-yarder as well at some point in the game too. So 2 huge kicks from him that really sparks momentum for this USC offense and the team as a whole. You can tell when your kicker makes a 50-plus yarder, it gets you excited on the sideline. Now, the other 2 questions about the scholarships, I have no idea. I'm not sure how that all works.
It's hard. It's hard to track, but I know that they have an idea. Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never been a student athlete, so that's as far as we can go.
All I know is
I
got offered a couple of them, and you accept them, and that's yours, and I'm not sure how everybody else got them. But I was on teams where guys would get, and you see the cool stories on Twitter and Instagram, guys getting scholarships mid-year, a walk-on getting elevated to a scholarship player. How that happens, those extra ones they have, I'm not sure. It could be guys transferring. It could be guys that were supposed to commit that didn't. You may have a couple left over. I'm not sure. But either way, huge shout out to Dennis Lynch.
Yeah.
Absolutely earned. That's going to boost his confidence completely. And hopefully, and that shows Coach Riley going forward, if we need a clutch moment, a big-time kick, we can lean on this guy.
Yeah, for sure. Daniel said, how much, if at all, of an adjustment is there with the drastic time difference between games?
Huge. I'm not sure. I still am not sure how this is going to work.
So Sierra Wright talked about it on Tuesday.
I'd love to hear players.
He said that the team has moved up meetings to be early morning meetings this whole week, so they're used to being like in football mode early this morning. Sierra Wright said he's personally going to bed earlier this week.
Good.
Wish I could be that self-disciplined. And he also said he's going to go to bed early Friday night.
Yeah, you
but
have
that's
to.
like pretty much, that's
you really have to. It is such a big change. But again, I mean, Coach Riley obviously had the option to accept the game. He accepted it. If there's anybody in the country that can get their team ready to play, no matter time, place, wherever you're going to be at, it's Coach Riley. So I'm excited for these guys. And again, I love what he said about on Trojans Live on Monday. It's kind of what we just talked about. You're not sitting around all day waiting for a game. You can wake up, you have all that adrenaline, all that rush, go get it out early and go, go out there and handle business and then get home.
Marici, I'm sorry if I said that wrong, said, why don't we utilize depth on both sides of the field? Been frustrating to watch for sure. And I would actually counter that. I feel like we were surprised with how much we've seen USC use their depth for the last 4 games.
Yeah, I think obviously she's talking about the most recent game. We didn't see as many guys as we had before. I'll say this to answer that question, two-parter. The first 3 games, we saw a lot of the freshmen because of the score difference. Now, this last game, it answered the question of who the coaches trust and who's going to be out there when it's crunch time, when the game's closer. Not maybe who they trust. They probably trust everybody, but who they're going to lean on, who the leaders are, and who are going to be the guys when the times are tough, when the games are close, when the momentum's not going our way, that they're going to be out there. And also, you've got to save some of those red shirts, right? It's tough to see some of that rotation if the game's close like that, if you don't want to bring in some of these freshmen. They've already played 3 games. I think everybody on the team on both sides of the ball have probably played already 3 games. If you want to save some of these freshmen, save their red shirts for years to come, you have to be careful when you put them out there.
Given what we just talked about, Lobo said with the 9 a.m. kickoff, 10 a.m., and high elevation, do you foresee more rotation in that sense?
Yeah, that might have to be an issue. Now, I was just talking to Tierney and Jada,
our
producers,
producer interns,
about playing in Colorado. They said they felt a difference. You've been to Colorado before, obviously, elevation. I never really felt a difference. So I know it's a thing, personal experience, so I can't speak on it, but I would assume if guys are struggling, breathing, obviously there's going to be oxygen on the sideline, all that. I never really remember guys having issues when we played at Colorado. I played there twice. I don't remember too many issues, but there could be. And again, maybe I'm just not remembering it right, but
I mean,
I
it's
wouldn't
not
be
like
surprised.
you set records against Colorado, right?
No, that was at home though.
Okay, I just want to brag for you.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. But my 2 away games at Colorado, I don't remember. I know, again, I'm quarterback. Don't come for me in the comments saying you're a quarterback, you don't do anything.
You didn't do much, Cody.
I didn't run around either. I wasn't dual threat. But I don't remember guys having too many issues with elevation. Now, I know that's absolutely a factor, but
how much
it'll be
of
interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure.
And will there have to be more rotation because of that this week? That's a great question. We'll have to see.
For sure. Daniel wanted to know, is what we saw on offense and defense against ASU symptomatic of bigger issues or the result of an off week and an aggressive/desperate opponent?
Yeah, I'm going with the latter. I think it's the result of an off week, a team that's giving you their best, it's throwing everything they have at you with fake punts, wildcat passes, different plays there, pooch punts with their running back, then he throws one, all these different things, some different looks on the defensive side of the ball as well. I think it was just a kind of a wake-up call for USC on both sides of the football, first road game environment, a lot of things that, like I said, are good that they're happening now and we can learn from them and improve on them. But the big question mark or the big answer to that question is how do we improve going forward? That's going to be something to keep a close eye on.
Rama wanted to know any bets on Zachariah Branch returning a punt or kickoff for a touchdown and getting Gus Johnson all fired up.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
That'd be really fun.
I'll tell you what, it might not just be me. I'm sure it's probably everybody who watches. Anytime he gets the ball in his hand on a kickoff or a punt return, you kind of hold your breath for a second.
Mm-hmm.
You're almost expecting him to take it to the house every time. And I don't remember a player being like that since Adoree, since Reggie, those type of players. So, yeah, I mean, if you had to have me place a little side bet every game, if he's going to take one to the house, I'd probably bet every game.
Corey wanted to know, and I think this is for travel, he said, how are roommates decided?
Yeah, I think that's done by the coaches, or at least when I was here, we didn't get to decide who our roommates were. I started out with Matt Barkley for my first 2 years, both quarterbacks, so made sense. And then after that, it became Max Turk, who was our center. So me and Max were roommates on the road games after that, or for camp, whoever it may be. But whoever your roommate is, it's pretty consistent throughout the entire year. But yeah, I never got to decide, so I'm assuming the coaches pick, and normally they'll do it. I remember when guys would come in as freshmen, they normally put you with a mentor of the upperclassmen. So I was with Matt Barkley. I remember Marquise Lee was with Robert Woods. So they would do it to where the younger guys would get paired up with who in their position group was the leader of the team or the leader of that position. But yeah, that's all done by the coaches.
Alrighty. Final question from my portion of the questions, Cody, is for me, and it's from Sam. Biased, but I love this question. He said, if you had to give Beyonce a PFF grade for her performance at her concert this past weekend, what grade are you giving her? Now, I believe PFF is like 1 through 100, 100 being the best.
PFF is Pro Football Focus, by the way.
Yes,
if you don't
Pro
know.
Football
Yeah.
Focus. It's a service that
They
actually
grade players week to week, teams week to week.
they do a great job. They also do
do.
things like missed tackles and things like
Yeah,
that,
they
like
have a good
stats that
grading
you
system.
can't find elsewhere, which is fun.
'Kay.
It's not a promo for PFF. We can be
Yeah,
sponsored
yeah,
if we
there
want
you
to,
go,
though. I would give her 105. There you go.
Okay, yeah. I was about to say, this is not going to be less than 100.
Oh, not at all.
So the concert was fun?
It was so great. She
Yeah.
is such a performer. It's
Okay.
like it's an artistry. It's amazing. I could have a whole podcast episode on this myself, so I will not go there.
I can't help you there on those, so I'm not a big...
Blue, her daughter, came out. I saw Megan Thee Stallion. She came out. We got 3 bonus songs. It was just incredible. I loved it. I lost my voice. I was so tired. I had 2 hours of sleep, but nothing stops my excitement for Beyonce.
Listen to all their music, but I'm very happy for you, and it
Thank
sounds
you.
like you had a great time.
Thank you, Cody. You sound
So-
like a boomer. You're like, I don't know who that is, but great.
No, I'm just, you know me. I'm
yes,
more of
I know.
country.
You're a country guy. You're
little
from
house music.
Bakersfield.
I like rap, though. I do like rap music. I'll listen to some
Okay.
rap, but I'm more country. But
Yes.
Beyonce, just out of my wheelhouse. I'm not.
That's
I'm
totally
not. I'm
fine.
not saying I'm not a fan. I'm very happy for you.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you, Cody. Alrighty. It's time to announce an emoji winner. Now, if I'm correct, Cody, this is for merch.
Yes.
And the one we're going to announce, the emojis we're going to release for this episode is for Arizona
tickets
at
Yeah.
the Coliseum.
And
2
that'll be
sets of 2
announced
tickets.
next Wednesday. Yes.
We have, I believe this is the most entries we've ever had.
It's up there.
67.
I would like to go back and see the Notre Dame tickets we gave away from last year,
Good
but
point.
I'm pretty sure this is right around that.
Yeah, so very exciting. Thank you guys very much.
And again, it's only a merch giveaway.
Yeah.
So
ready to generate when you
yeah,
are, Cody.
I got the list in front.
48 is the first winner.
48 that is on the Twitter list. Marco Montenegro. Let's see.
Woo. A name I haven't heard before.
I have not either. Marco Montenegro. Yep, follows me, follows us. Okay, username is at Mr. USC 96. So congratulations, Marco. You're
Woo.
the first winner.
Second winner,
Second winner, I'm ready.
39.
39 is Utah Trojan fan.
Oh. What happens when it's Utah week? Utah Trojan fan.
Yep, Utah Trojan fan. And their username is at Jason Komarek. JASON KOMAREK. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Komarek.
Okay.
Fun fact, too, looking at his replies, new to Twitter, but his only replies are to us on the
Aw.
Victory Pod. So
That's an added bonus. We
Shout
don't know
out
that, but that's
Jason.
really fun.
yeah, so this week's winners are Marco and Jason. Again, this will be apparel, so I'll reach out to you after this episode comes out. And then your options are a USC hat, a short sleeve shirt, a sweatshirt, or a long sleeve shirt we can sign or unsign. But
pressure.
now, this week, back to tickets, right?
Yeah. So now it's for tickets for the Arizona game. We will give out 2 sets of 2 tickets, and you can bring whoever you want.
Yeah, so one person will get 2, the other person will get 2, and I like that we're doing that though. I like that we do 2 giveaways. I still feel guilty because only 2 people out of 67
but a little
won.
less guilty.
A little less guilty.
Little
Again,
less.
if you didn't win, or if you haven't won, or if you've been trying to win, we apologize. It's completely randomized. I wish everybody could win, but with that being said,
We got to drop 2 new emojis.
yeah. Okay, go ahead. Who's doing them?
Me first?
Are we doing me and you this week?
Yes, let's do you and me this week.
All right.
Alrighty, as far as my emoji, I'm going to go with an orange.
Okay.
I don't know why. Don't ask me.
And
I saw it, and I picked it.
Okay, I'm going to stay on the food theme here.
Okay.
I'm going to go with, let's go waffle. I'm going to
Okay.
go with a waffle.
Random?
Early morning kickoff,
Okay.
breakfast in Boulder.
Oh, look at that.
I was already on the food section too. So we're going to orange and a waffle. So
Okay.
food theme, for whatever reason, I don't know why, this week, that's what we're going with.
Yeah.
And if you are a first-time listener, the way it works is you have to respond with these emojis, again, an orange and a waffle. And if you do respond, you have to be following on that platform. So if you respond on Twitter, and you can respond on my replies, Victory Pod replies, direct message, Keely's replies, either way. But if you respond on Twitter, you have to be following myself, Keely, and the Victory Pod on Twitter. And if you respond on Instagram, again, on the Victory Pod comments, my comments, direct message, whatever you want to do, you have to be following myself, Keely, and the Victory Pod on Instagram. And then next week, we put all the numbers down, do random.org, and we'll pick 2 winners. Each person will win 2 tickets each to the Arizona game. And yeah, I'm excited for it. Back to tickets, back to home games finally.
Yes. I'm excited to be back in the Coliseum next week. Alrighty, Cody, it's time for me to pass it over to you. It's time for the Cody 2-minute drill where you will quickly go through your
Quickly.
Instagram questions.
Got a lot this week.
Yeah, as I say, I heard we got a lot.
We do have a lot this week. I'm going to be quick, though.
I believe in you.
I believe in me, too. Sometimes I feel like I've been a lot quicker.
Yes,
It's just been I've been getting a lot of questions.
that's true, which can't blame you for.
Yeah, no, and I liked a lot of the questions. I know Keely likes to be a little bit quicker,
Hey,
but I'm a
I've
fan.
gotten feedback that people are not the biggest fans of this segment.
Okay, well, you're cutting into my time right now.
Okay,
So here we
go
go.
for it.
First one is from Reg Bindheim. Is Mario Williams trying too hard? Do you think that's why he has been dropping so many balls? I think it was just an issue that game. I haven't really been noticing outside of that. But last week, I think it was just one of those things where he had a couple drops. Huge catch. And on the 2-point conversion, so he'll bounce back from that. So I have no worries about that. I know him and Caleb have a great relationship. Mario Williams is a very good receiver. I have full confidence that he will bounce back this week. The next one is from Joe Osorio. What was your favorite away stadium to play in? I'm going with Notre Dame. I just think the tradition there. This was before they put the turf in too, so that tall grass, all that, just the low lights, the packed crowd, night game in South Bend. So I'm going with Notre Dame. Next one is from Juvie25. Both teams struggled on the road last week. What do you expect to see from each team this Saturday? Two teams that are hungry. Two teams that are going to learn what they learned from the film from a week ago and apply that this week. Two teams with a lot to prove. Obviously, big noon kickoff and a lot of hype around this football game. But you got to see two teams take that next step from a week ago and have a great performance this Saturday. The next one is from Brian Zarski. Cody, when you would play in altitude, would it change your preparation or performance? Again, I've already talked about this. I apologize, Brian. I don't remember. I don't think I ever had an issue. Again, I played quarterback. I know I don't even remember teammates having issues, but again, that'll be something to keep a close eye on this week. The next one is from Michael Steven. How does a practice/meeting schedule change leading up to an early morning kickoff? Again, Michael, I'm not sure. It's going to be interesting. I can't wait to hear. Has Coach Riley talked about the schedule at all or what they're going to do pregame and all that?
Not yet.
Would love if you can maybe sneak that question in afterwards, after the win.
Okay.
After we win. Great mood. He's in a good mood. Then we can ask him about the preparation.
Sure.
But that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. The next one is from Kai Y'all. What was your take on the defense this past weekend against Arizona State? Again, just some issues, obviously, from last year that showed up a little bit, missed tackles, some missed assignments here and there, but I'm glad that it happened now, something that we can learn from. We can watch the tape this week, have another road game, another test this week against a Colorado offense that has been very explosive this season. Obviously, the first 3 games, they have been very good. Let's learn from that from a week ago and improve. Front 4 looks great. Linebacker play, like to see a little bit more improvement there, maybe some more rotation, and secondary continue to build off of what we've been doing so far this year. The next one is from Raul Sanchez 323. Is the prime effect still real? Yes, I fully believe that. Obviously last week it showed that they are a little bit of ways away still. There is still some learning there. They do have to create some more depth. They've got to get more comfortable. But again, the prime effect so far this year has been awesome to watch, and I think it's still going to be a huge hyped up game. A lot of emotion and drama going into this game, even with a loss last week against Oregon. The next one is from No Cheese. You think we will see a different lineup at linebacker this game? No idea. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. I read the snap counts earlier, how that played out. We saw who the coaches had in there late in the game when it was close. Will that change this week? That'll be something to keep an eye on. The next one's from Brian Summers. What will our defense have to do to replicate what Oregon did to Colorado on Saturday? For me, it's simple. Have a dominant pass rush and cover well in the back end. Those are the 2 areas. Don't let Shedeur Sanders sit back there and pick you apart. Collapse the pocket, create some havoc in the backfield, and we should have some success on defense. The next one is from Josh Harden 1. With Travis Hunter and Shiloh Sanders both hurt, how does Colorado stop our receivers? Again, I think they're going to kind of try to continue to do what they do. Drop 8, try to play more, keep everything in front of them, play a lot of zone coverage. That's what they've been doing recently. Do they change that up from last week when Oregon got after them a little bit? Do they try to play a little different this week against us? I wouldn't expect that. I think their MO is going to be rush 3 or 4 and try to keep everything in front. Don't give up the big plays on offense. The next one is from Lemons, the car guy. Why did we drop from 5 to 8 after the win in Arizona? Again, I don't know how all that works. It's an AP poll. In my opinion, I think they just want to see it. The voters want to see a dominant win on the road against an opponent that's struggling with depth and lost last week to Fresno State. It doesn't matter until college football playoff rankings come out. It really
these rankings don't.
They mean nothing.
Yeah.
Again, it's cool to look at for fans, but until CFP rankings come out, I really don't pay close attention to those. The next one's from Trojan Mamo 6. How much fun will you have Saturday in studio for Fox, then going over to 790 station for USC? Trying to plug there. Again, we've already talked about it. But yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited for that. Again, if you missed that at the opening of the show, be ready to watch that on CFB Fox on both Twitter and YouTube for a live game cast of the show. The next one is from Efrain Rodriguez, 1993. What do you think USC needs to address to ensure they solidify as Pac-12 and playoff contenders? specifically, I don't think there's really any issues. Last week, let's tackle a little bit better. That's something that can improve this week. But I can't wait to see how this team improves from a week ago. I'll have a better answer to that question if we have some issues that continue to happen. But as of right now, played great the first 3 weeks, had a bye. First road game, there's going to be some issues. Let's see how we improve on those and correct those going into this week, and then I'll have a better answer for that question. The next one is from Lito Laralde, 87. Can USC lose a game and still make college playoff? Yes. I think it does depend what game that is. I think it, obviously if it's a Notre Dame, if it's an Oregon, if it's a Washington game, it carries a little more weight if we lose that game and still win the Pac-12 championship, as opposed to letting a game drop that maybe we shouldn't. The next one is from Chadster. Is there any concern about the game with the team on short rest, playing at altitude? Again, that's kind of a TBD. I'm a little concerned with the early morning wake up. But again, the coaching staff has no issues with that. Lincoln Riley took the game, so I know that they're going to be ready to go, but it's just going to be interesting to see how they address it. The next one's from Alex Sassani. Any nuggets on how you and your teammates prepared for NFL road games?
Interesting.
No, I mean, it's really the same from college to NFL. There's not that much of a difference. Home games are different because you do drive yourself to the stadium, even staying at the hotel and all that. In college, everything is on the bus.
Yeah.
You never drive yourself. But a road games, NFL is very similar to college. Go the day before, unless it's going across country, you might go an extra day before. But no, same thing. Wake up, have breakfast, take the bus over. There's 2 buses. You can go the early bus, which is 4 hours before, or the second bus, which is 3 hours before. The next one's from Trojan Dad 516. You will probably already answer this question, but how many red dot guys this week? I think we had 3 on offense, and then we had 2 on defense.
Yes, I believe that is correct.
And then obviously we learned Shiloh is confirmed that he is out, Shiloh Sanders, so that took away one of those guys. So I think 3 on offense and 1 on defense. And then the last one is from CGY, from a fellow Menlo resident during college. Favorite food on Vermont?
Ooh.
So Menlo was the apartments that I lived at, Menlo Blue. We lived on Menlo when I was here at USC. It was me, Turk, and Sua, me, Turk, and Nelson for a while too. So we had a little good group of guys there. Favorite place on Vermont? I'd have to go with Caveman Kitchen. I've said it before.
Okay, here's the crazy part.
It is so good if you've never had it. It's
I'm directionally challenged,
Yeah.
and I didn't realize. I thought you said it was next to Expo, but it's not.
No.
It's off of Normandy or Vermont.
It's on Vermont.
Yeah, okay, it's off of Vermont.
So Menlo, 28th.
Yes.
So Menlo runs this way. You go to 28th, turn left, get to Vermont. It's like 1 or 2 streets down.
No, I drive past it every day to go to work, and
Yeah.
I looked over when I was in
Phenomenal.
traffic, and I was like, "Wait a minute, this
Yeah.
is what Cody's." Yeah,
And
so
no,
anyway.
we're not sponsored by Caveman Kitchen,
No.
but I ate there enough, and their ownership, everybody there is awesome. Know a lot of the chef stuff too. They're phenomenal. Huge shout out to them. If you ever never had Caveman Kitchen on Vermont, go check it out.
There you go.
But with that being said, I'm done. I feel like that was quick.
Good job.
It does go a little long. I get it. There's a lot of questions, but I'm speed racing.
Yeah, I'm proud of you. Very
Okay.
proud of you. It's time for game predictions.
Yes.
I got to be honest. I have
gotta
not
breathe.
thought of this one. Sorry
No, you're good.
to
Go
make
ahead.
you go so fast. I'm going to make you speak again, though, because I don't know what I want to say for my game prediction.
Yeah, so we did this. I did it with Jason again on the Trojans wrap up show on radio, and I think I said 45-17.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'm going to stick with that. Now I've had time to watch the tape. I've watched Colorado a little bit more. I've watched our last game against Arizona State. I'm going to stay in the same ballpark, but I'm going to go 49-21. That is going to be my score prediction. I'm going to go 49-21.
Okay. I'm going to say 52-17.
Okay.
Seems like a weird score.
Yeah, I'm going 49-21, 52-17.
Sure.
Yeah. All right.
There you go. Alrighty. That's going to wrap it up. Very glad to have you back in the studio, Cody.
Yeah.
Fun episode. Excited for this matchup. We're getting into the meat and potatoes of the schedule. I haven't said it yet in this podcast, so I had to say it somehow.
We are. We're week 4 in, and the podcasts are already getting more excited. There's you can feel those big games coming up. Pac-12 too is unbelievable this year. There's going to be a lot of our podcasts are going to be a lot of fun just because of how competitive this conference is.
100%. Yeah.
But I'm done talking. I've talked a lot this episode. This is my outro. Love you guys. Fight on. I'm excited for Saturday. Let's bring the heat. If you can get out to Boulder at 10 a.m., see if you're tailgating. We'll see how the true Trojan fans are. But either way, it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's get it done.
Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up. That's Cody. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next time.